Today we kōrero with Seamus Marten, co-host of the Between Two Beers podcast. His love and passion for football has taken him all over the world, and most recently he hosted the Pacific Games in the Solomon Islands. We talk about external and internal identity battles, making the decision to stop drinking, body image and self-conscious worries, and developing authentic relationships in every environment that you're in. But first, we kick off with a funny chat about toilet paper, how to fold your clothes, how to stack the dishwasher, and where you have your TV volumes. Let's get into it. Thank you so much for coming in to our studio, Seamus. We're so excited to have you here.
I'm super excited to be here. Amazing setup you've got, by the way.
Thank you. We'll talk about that later. We'll hire it out. Now look, we like to start our interviews off with a wellbeing card from the Good Day Matrix deck, so you can pick any card that just warms you up for the day.
So you've given me these options, but
go.
I'm going to go from this chunky pile here.
Love it.
Ooh, reading it out?
Yeah.
What's something you know you do differently than most people? Oh hell. I don't know whether I do this differently to most people, but it's a peculiarity to me.
Yeah.
Volume on TV or radio has to be a multiple of 5.
Yeah.
I think that's quite common amongst people, but I've heard 2s.
I've heard 7s.
Oh.
I know.
That would throw me.
You'd either go 7 or 4. It's a pretty big jump.
That would really throw me. And like, I do like order in things. So if like items on my desk in particular are not straight or not in a particular, I've got a little bit of, I won't say OCD because people with actual OCD were like, that's not OCD. That's not OCD at all. I just like things to be in order for my brain to be at peace. So I have to fold my t-shirts a certain way.
Oh yeah.
All my t-shirts are folded sleeves in.
Yeah.
Collar facing out or logo facing out. But as you can see, I don't wear logoed t-shirts. But yeah, something you do differently than most people. Okay.
You should get one of those. My friend used to work at Rod and Gun years ago when we were teenagers, and they'd have the board that they'd put on the t-shirt, and then they'd do it. I'd sit there watching her. And it was and then they slide the card out and there's this perfectly folded.
Yeah. So I was a team manager for New Zealand football teams for a long time. So I would spend hours in the gear room and the kit room just folding shirts and putting them out for the players the next day to pick up. They're perfectly, it's not perfect, but yeah. There's a piece and an order to having things under control.
Yeah.
Laundry and folding laundry is my happy place.
Well, there's a lot to be said about that. If you stay present when you're doing it, and not hate it going, oh, I hate doing laundry.
No.
If you just enjoy the process of it, there's quite a mindful.
Fun fact though, I'm in a recently new relationship, and she folds her towels in a very particular way. Yeah. And I am 11 months in, and I still haven't cracked it. So I fold, and then they get refolded. Yeah.
It's like the dishwasher restack, depending on who you live with.
Actually, are you prongs up or prongs down?
I'm prongs up.
Yeah.
Because they get cleaner.
Yeah, and they've got to drain down to the handle.
But other people are.
What about knives though?
Not sharp ones like your dinner ones up, but sharp ones. And to be fair, I actually put the sharp ones. There's that little like fold out thing, and you can slot them on the side.
Which I didn't know what was for before. Which I've realised now is that that's where you can put utensils.
Yeah, because I don't want my kids, if they're going to empty the dishwasher, to.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Well, we're
on the same page with that.
Similar cloths.
Yeah. But are you to the extent where knives go in one of the boxes, forks go in one of the boxes? Oh, do you? Oh,
yeah. Because it's easy. You can just grab them all.
It's true. It is. I respect that, but with 5 people putting stuff in there, it never ever.
Yeah.
The order of that never works.
And toilet paper always over.
Yes, that's my husband's thing.
Yeah.
It has to be over. He gets so wound up if it's the other way.
Which, this is probably going into too much detail, but like toilet paper always over, but I'm a scruncher. Whereas by definition of all my other traits, you'd think that I'd be a folder, but I'm not. You need the scrunch.
Best opening.
You need the scrunch to get into the nooks and crannies. But, we've lost some of the audience early doors.
Yeah. I'm sorry, guys. No.
Yeah, apologies.
I reckon people will start having an argument about this, whether it's over or under.
If we're promoting conversation, that's a good thing.
That's what we're here for. And we inspire curiosity. Now you'll pay attention to what you do. Now, you were born in Taupo and your family are really tight. So talk to us about growing up in Taupo and how that shaped you and how you ended up here in the Waikato.
Yeah, it's a real happy place for me.
Yeah.
So many fond memories, especially as I've got older. So my mum's from the Solomon Islands and my dad was English. He's passed now. They moved from the Solomons to Taupo in 1981, and I was born a year later. So really thankful for that happy accident to be born there. And I think like growing up was wicked. It was such a cool place. We were one of the only Pacific Island families in town. Wow. So we had, well, to my knowledge, there's probably way more than my child brain was aware of. But mum had like a really good Tongan friend, a really good Fijian friend. And we had like weekend get-togethers all the time. Those of you out there that are familiar with Whareawaka Point, we used to go to Whareawaka Point, had the barbecues there. We spent time in Kinloch as well. So just really, really happy memories of that place. And football was a big part of my growing up. So in winters, I was down at the football club playing from 7 until we moved at age 14, I think it was. And then in summers was down at the tennis club watching mum. She was a top tennis player. So those kind of two community hubs have got really, I've got really strong memories of those two areas. Moved to Hamilton in 1996. My elder sister, I've got two siblings, older brother and my sister. My sister fell pregnant. I always find that such a funny term, fell pregnant. My sister had her first baby, and then she had another one soon after, and she just finished university, wanted to get back in the workforce. Mum was working in a bakery. Dad was medically retired. He had a serious car accident when I was 7. So they came to be caregivers to my two eldest nieces, and then I followed suit and moved here to Hamilton. And it was in terms of like my development, that move from Taupo to Hamilton was a really good one for me. I went to Hamilton Boys. I was lucky to get into Hamilton Boys. They weren't going to take me initially. I was probably a little bit of a class clown at Tauhara College.
Who wasn't?
Yeah. And the late Graham Robinson, who's the deputy headmaster then, maybe stuck his head out to get me into school. Otherwise, I was probably looking down the barrel of Fairfield College, which in the mid-90s maybe wasn't the best school to go to. And Boys High was great. Really, really good. Really, really good for me. But now as an adult, whenever I go over the crest of the hill coming towards the control gates and the lake opens up in front of you, it's like, I'm at peace. There's the lake, there's my mountain, there's my neighborhood where I grew up. So it's a really special place still to this day.
I know that breath you take when you come up and over, because at Waihi, my husband's the same. He grew up going to the beach there all the time, and he will be stressed all year, and you drive up, the first time you see the water, his entire body changes. It's just human. It's wonderful. And like I've never been a skier, but you've got Ruapehu and Tongariro in the background as well, Ngarahoe, and it's epic. Such a cool place. Now, when you were growing up, you talked to us about that you sort of weren't European enough and you weren't Solomon Island enough. Talk to us about sort of those internal battles for yourself, but also sort of the external battles that you may have been facing at the time as well.
Yeah, sure. So like, as I said, my dad, English, white English. Mum's from the Solomon Islands. My sister has been blessed with lighter skin than me and my brother. Again, I think it's probably as my brain formed and you start forming opinions or forming kind of beliefs. I remember doing a study in year 13 at Boys High about Malcolm X and Black Panthers and the movement in the 60s, and I also started to become a little bit more aware of okay, I am a little bit different here. But growing up, it was never a thing. And then when I moved out of home, so I stayed at home for university. I went to University of Waikato here in Hamilton. And then when I moved to Auckland, first time living out of home, flatting with people again, trying to find your place in the world, early 20s, and I gravitated towards the Solomon Island community that were in Auckland. There was a bunch of guys similar age to me. I grew up. I could understand my mum's language from the village, but the Solomons is quite. Each province is quite isolated, so each province almost speaks their own language. So that wasn't consistent amongst that community group. So Pidgin English was is the kind of language which links everybody. But I couldn't really speak it. I was really self-conscious about speaking and being misunderstood and wanting acceptance and all those little things. And then I travelled to the UK for work in about 2006. And again, I was in a little village where my dad's family were from, and I was sitting in a pub with my cousin, who now lives in Wanaka, and there was a geezer next to us, and it's Somerset is cider town, and he, we had ordered a cider each, and he had a sip, and he turned across and he looked at me and he was like, "Oh, don't see many of your type round here." And at that point, it wasn't offensive. It wasn't meant to be offensive. But then I became acutely aware of like, oh shit, I'm different. But I've always been very comfortable. There's a story I retell a lot of times. So I worked in football, and I was lucky enough to go to Switzerland with FIFA, where the global body is headquartered. And there was a time where I'd flown to Zurich, and I'd flown business class on the Emirates, which if you get a chance is great. And I'm sitting in the executive committee meeting room in the bunker of FIFA. It's like 6 levels down. There's a big crystal chandelier over. Wow. It's wild. Like there's people that speak different languages and everything's, you've got an earpiece in and there's a simultaneous interpretation, and it's this surreal experience of global football. And then I'd flown later that night, I'd flown to Brisbane, and then gone to Brisbane up to the Solomons. And then within a 24-hour period, I'd gone from this quite opulent corporate headquarters to eating barbecued fish out of a banana leaf with my hands in the village in the Solomons. And I was equally comfortable in kind of both areas. So it's always been this weird thing of being very comfortable but very uncomfortable at the same time, of not feeling like you fit in either camp. But again, like the lens as I've got older, it's like I embrace that ability now, and I've recently returned from the Solomons as part of I was a host for the broadcast for the Pacific Games, and it was epic to have people from this. Oh God, I'm getting emotional. People from the Solomons being like, they were just so proud that I was fronting it, and like myself being super proud of representing my culture. Like my Solomon Island side, but also the elements that I brought from my dad's side as well, to be able to kind of do that. So it's been a hell of a journey, kind of making sense of that. And I think people that are mixed race, maybe they'll share that same feeling at some point in time. But it was something that most of my friends here are European, so it's not something I could kind of have a coffee over and go, hey, how do you find being mixed race? Because most are all are all European or all Solomon Island or one of the two. So I've got family as well that I have these conversations with. That's quite a healing conversation to have, to know that you're not the only one who's kind of struggling a little bit with where you fit in. Yeah.
And my next question was going to be like, what can people do, either if you're feeling that way as mixed race, or for people who may make you feel that way, and whether intentionally or unintentionally, what could be some advice? But also, I've been doing a lot of research around this recently as well, but like, it's really important we do acknowledge differences. So even if you are with your friends and they are all European, like flag it and be like, because I've said this in a few chats now, but like I used to always be like, I don't see colour, I don't see difference. And that was obviously it's called ordinary privilege, which means that I just think it's just normal privilege to just be who you are. But actually I need to acknowledge if my friend is Māori or if my friend is someone, and be like, that's so cool, like tell me more about it, I want to know what life is like and what that culture means to you, and is there something I can come to that you guys do that I can learn more about your culture?
It's man, it's weird you say that. Like I went to the village on this last trip, and I took my partner there, and I was saying like, man, I don't think any of my friends here in New Zealand have any idea about this part of my identity and what makes me. Like I talk about family a lot with my friends. Like, I can't do that because I've got a family thing, and they're like, sometimes people will roll their eyes like, "Fucking you and your family all the time." I'm like, I don't know how to explain it without bringing someone along, and that's probably that would be my advice, is to not be a little bit like me and be quite guarded and protective of it for maybe shame of them not understanding it and me then taking offense.
Yeah.
So I've probably protected that too much. I think again, it's just come to me now. Like when my dad passed away, we have that similar grieving style where he came back to our house and people descended en masse. Everybody you could imagine, people that were connected, not connected, did know, didn't know. And that same cousin that I had the cider with in Somerset, who'd then now living in Wanaka, had come up, and we sang songs into the night. People just slept in the lounge. It was really communal, and he was like, man, I've never seen any grieving like this before, and how soothing. I'm putting words into his mouth. Apologies, Adam, if I've taken it out of context. But like how soothing that kind of shared grieving is. And it, for me, it was just such a natural concept, but I realized it's not the same for everybody. And I think inviting people where you feel comfortable into your culture is probably a really important thing.
Yeah. And to be the person who's being invited, take them up on it.
Yeah.
Don't be worried that you won't understand or know or, do the right things.
Yeah. Ask questions.
Yeah. They haven't invited you because you're going to know all the protocols or like know what's going on. Just go.
Yeah, 100%. Like ask questions.
Yeah.
If you think it's a dumb question, it's not. It's appreciated that the question is asked.
Yeah.
What does this mean? Why do you do that?
Yeah.
I think those are kind of really important.
Yeah, I thoroughly agree.
And for someone who is mixed race, it also reinforces your, I don't actually know. I should go and ask, so I learn more because I'm not the authority on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. That's some epic advice. Now, your identity has been wrapped up in football for quite some time. So talk to us about what that's like. Talk to us about the club that you're a part of here in Hamilton as well, because you've got a pretty strong connection with your club and the work that you do in the youth space with football. Yeah.
So I grew up playing in Taupo, and then it was football, I think, that got me into boys high. So I played up until I was about 22, 23.
Yeah.
So I was selected to play for the Solomon Islands. I smile because it makes me super proud, but I wasn't able to represent because I couldn't get a passport. They didn't have dual citizenship at that stage. No. So that was taken away. And then my mum's cousin, who was the chairman of Solomon Islands football at that stage, was really high up and involved in Oceania football, and said to me, well, look, if you want to see the world and you want to be involved in football still, become an administrator.
Yep.
Bring me your CV and become an administrator. Eventually I did that, and it set me on this path of going to FIFA tournaments and going to World Cups. And I was like I won't say a poster boy for football in the Pacific, but I was on this really cool path. And so it has been a constant in my life, whether it was playing or just being involved. So currently I'm involved with Melville United here in Hamilton. When I moved to Papua New Guinea. Maybe we'll talk about Papua New Guinea in a little bit in 2015, and I was there till 2017. And then when I came back, a good friend of mine, Sam Wilkinson, had moved back from the UK, and he started this youth academy at Melville United. And I thought I could maybe help out in some way, shape or form. It was a chance to hang out. All my mates had moved back, so Sam, Michael Main, Steve Holloway, who I do the Between Two Beers podcast with, we're all part of this club. So, it's a great way to spend time with your mates and do something you love. So I got involved in that, and I'd had a background in team management with New Zealand teams, gone away, and I'd kind of just sort of fell into this role of pastoral care as well as logistics and administration.
Yeah.
But the young players that were in the groups seemed to be comfortable talking, and I had an interest in finding out a little bit more about them and what they were doing and what they were about. So through Melville, the academy starts at 12 and goes to 17, and the nature of Hamilton is if you're good enough, you're old enough. So if you're a 15, 16-year-old kid that's good at football, more often than not, you're going to be thrust into the senior environment. So when you're in the senior environment, it's nice to have someone put an arm around you or help you out with things or just look after you. So that was kind of my role by default. I took an interest in, the kids that were coming through, and I always wanted to be. I don't have kids of my own yet, but there's a part of me that likes to be a role model, or likes to, likes to pass advice on, or if someone can avoid some of the heartache or the niggle that I went through coming up, or I don't know, like a wise head to bounce ideas off. Like I relish when someone asks me a question or seeks advice. It's a big it's a big boost for me. So I've fallen into that role over a number of years, and I like to think I'm not as involved as I was when Sam was the coach. He's now gone to other things in another country, but I'm still involved with the club on the committee, and I still want it to be a focal point. Like I think, and I'm connecting the dots as I speak here, but I think back to growing up in Taupo, and I think back to those two, the football club and the tennis club, being kind of critical parts of learning about life and respect. And there's a lot of lessons in sport that, we had a saying with Wilkie, with Sam, there's no school like the old school. Yeah. There's still a place, I think, in sport for some of those old school values of you've got to work hard to earn something, and you build your resilience, and you learn from failures or disappointments. You roll your sleeves up and you get stuck in. So I think there's some really valuable lessons in that sporting space, which I feel like I'm in a good position to be able to interpret some of those for young minds, and break it into terms that they understand.
And for young minds, sometimes whatever messages that you could take out of it, without someone to be there as a supporting guide, they all just turn into horrible messages coming back, if that makes sense. And like that you're doing everything wrong. I was that kid who had those things happen. You're like, if you can't mentally process it and see the left and the right kind of reasons why, and you can only just feel horrible if there's not someone there who goes, hey, let's talk about what's just going on. Then it's such a lost space, and you lose so many great athletes, I think, that way. So it's epic that you're doing that.
Like 100%. Like, so, it's like that. Yeah. Kids are like that these days. And it's not like, no. Yeah, you didn't get picked this week, but in a month's time, you might be the main guy. It's a really rewarding space, I think, as well, when you see young people achieve. It's epic. It really is.
I've managed the National League netball teams, the team under. I've done ANZ Premiership too, but for 4 years I did the team under the Magic. So Waikato Bay of Plenty Girls.
In the old Becco.
Yeah, in the Becco League. Now it's National League because Becco was sponsored, but not anymore.
So Becco,
sponsor them again. But my message a lot of the time was, don't let one coach's decision be the end of your career. Because they do select on what they like, and they can't help that. We come with biases, and we think that kid is acting like some other kid we had 6 years ago, so we're not going to pick her because same behaviours kind of thing, and not, or they like a certain skill set or whatever they're looking for. But so many players go, oh well, if I'm not good enough now, I'm never going to be good enough, and they go do other stuff, and you're like, wait, like don't let that one person's decision, that's one opinion.
Totally.
There's so many more coaches and opportunities out there. Just don't let that person be the reason you stop this pathway or this trajectory that you're on. Like, just
and it is so week by week as well, right? Like like it's I guess it's that, like, that immediacy mindset that we have nowadays of like, oh, I didn't make it now, so I'm just going to go and do something else, or I'm going to quit, or I'm going to whatever.
Mum and Dad were right that I was wasting my time. Why didn't I study?
I know.
Why didn't I have that other vocation? Now, look, there was a moment in your career that really sent you into a bit of a downward spiral. So talk to us about that and the learnings that came from there.
Yeah, so I made reference earlier to Papua New Guinea. So I had an opportunity. I was shoulder tapped to go to Papua New Guinea to be the chief executive officer of the local organising committee for the FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup. So it was a global event held in an emerging nation, and I was probably still on this upward trajectory in terms of my career. I had ambitions of doing things at a higher level, maybe at a global, regional or global level in football, and I thought this would be a really cool stepping stone and another mark on the CV to do that. A little bit of ego probably in it as well. I thought, mum's from the Solomons, I know Solomon Islands culture, even though I still had some kind of imposter syndrome around that. It'll be fine, I'll slot in, I've got this accumulated knowledge. cut to the end of the story, we delivered the event. So was worried that that maybe we wouldn't get it across the line. So we delivered it. So I can look back with pride that we delivered this event, which was 15 nations, 15 women's, young women's teams, nations coming to Papua New Guinea, playing this global tournament. North Korea won. 15 teams came, 15 teams went. It went on without incident. We had great engagement from fans, from NGOs, from other stakeholder groups. We smashed our attendance targets. It was cool. The challenge was we ran at a pretty significant financial loss. So I think we overspent by 6.5 million US. And then I, as the CEO, went through a forensic audit with PwC to talk through a 1.5 million US budget overspend. And that was pretty tough because the delivery of the event itself, just to get it across the line, pushed me to the limit professionally, personally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. And then to have all of those decisions and all of those things questioned by someone that wasn't there and wasn't part of the environment and was kind of like, questioning your professional integrity, accusing you of essentially misappropriation of funds for personal gain. There was times where I was going through, and it was all done remotely as well. This was pre-Zoom too, so it was like over the phone. And I'm like, seriously guys, if you think that I took money, I wouldn't be 37 years old living at home with my mum, having spent all of my personal savings to try and help you guys through this event. So the fallout from it was essentially I was blacklisted in FIFA's eyes. So it was career limiting in terms of those opportunities that I had ambitions to move towards. It still has some trickle down effect now. So we recently held the FIFA Women's World Cup, New Zealand and Australia, and I went for a couple of roles here in Hamilton and didn't get them. I can't directly say it was because of a hangover from 2016, but I've got some pretty strong intel that maybe there was some hangover from that. So I had this whole kind of identity built around football and being this Pacific Island football person, and through this one event it was kind of all taken away. So I came back to Hamilton to rebuild and regroup. I like I said, I moved in with mum. I didn't have any romantic kind of links at that stage, and I was in a real funk because that's all I'd known for kind of 10 or 11 years as football had been my whole income earner, my whole world. And then the doors were all sort of seemingly closed on that. So it definitely forced me to think critically about what I was doing and what am I going to do. And I got into a pretty dark headspace at times through there. And it was tough. Like I eventually got back into kind of some football roles through team management, through New Zealand football. So there was light in that tunnel, but for sure, I felt a lot of shame going back into those environments thinking, these people are talking behind my back about, what I am alleged to have done or what I was a part of. So it was uncomfortable. It was cool to still be there, but there was a discomfort for about two or so years. And then COVID hit and I was a contractor and they were the first to go. So I kind of repositioned myself as a marketer. Like I'd done a marketing degree at that stage 20 years before.
Time to pull it out of the box.
Well, yeah, but shit, when I did a degree, digital marketing, Facebook wasn't a thing. And that was all the rage. That was all the rage. So I felt like a dinosaur there as well. So it was kind of like, well, who am I and what am I doing? And that just sort of, there's a real period from about 2018 to 2020 where I was pretty lost, but I had great people around me that really cared for me as well. So that was a real light in that challenging moment.
I can just imagine you being like, I don't know, buying something for the team and coming out with a receipt going, just so everyone knows. Just that's
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it was like that. It was like,
Evidence.
even when I went away with teams, it
Yeah.
was like, I felt like I had to over-explain expenditure for like minor sums of money in the wider scheme of things. But and I think again now, like a lot of that was a story I was telling myself, right? Like I don't know whether that was the general feeling out there because people's response to me was still warm. So there was a narrative going on in my own head about, this is what people are thinking of you. This is what you are, and it was like it was a real like looking back now, it was a real tough time.
Yeah, and with thinking about cognitive dissonance, like you'll then look for those things. So what you believe is true, you'll then find the evidence. Like they're talking about me. Oh, that's why they're over there.
Yeah. Like
or, everyone's watching what I'm doing. That's why she's sitting closer to my desk. Like you just. Oh man. Whereas she's sitting there because of something else, and they're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like that might be the case with the Women's World Cup.
Yeah.
But I did have to laugh when the HR said, "Oh, look, we found someone with a stronger skill set than you," and I was like, "Shit, I'd love to meet the person that lives in Hamilton with 15 years international football experience that was a CEO of one of these tournaments and has done all these things before. I'd love to bump into them at Coffee Culture at 5 Crossroads. That'd be epic."
Shout out,
plug
there. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, I know what I'm doing.
Now, since you were 15, you've had a really cool routine that you do. So talk to us about your haircuts.
I went yesterday. I went as part of my. Thank you. As part of my welcome back to back to Hamilton routine. I've been seeing a barber, Murray Rose Barber, Cambridge Road, since I was 15. So since I moved to Hamilton, he cut my brother's hair, and he's cut my hair since I was 15. I'm now older than 15.
Older than 15, just a little bit.
I'm now 16 years older than 15. 26 years older than 15. Oh my God, I got myself 10. And I try and see him every 2 weeks. There was a time where I would try and always go on a Friday at 4:30 because it's a no appointment. Yeah. He runs a no appointment operation. And my rationale for going Friday at 4:30 was like, that's the end of a busy week for him as well. So it's a chance for him to kind of unload and have a conversation. And I think there's something really special about a barbershop where, you're very close to someone who's cutting your hair. They've got to make small talk, and you can give as much or as little as you want in those times. And when you've known someone for 26 years, you share heaps and heaps with them. So I'd like to think I know Murray really well, and Murray knows me really well, and I know his family really well, and he knows mine, even though he's maybe not met everybody, but he knows all the cast of characters in my in my situation. So I go there partly for that that safe space that he creates and that ability to chat, and Jace as well, I should say, who cuts on the chair next to him. Although I never let Jace touch my hair. That's nothing on you, Jace, and your ability. You're a very, very good barber, but there's just the familiarity of Muzza, as well as I do it for myself. Yeah. I do it for myself because I like to feel good and like look good, feel good, all that sort of thing. So having a fresh cut makes me feel good, makes me feel like I can attack the world. So it's one of those things that works both ways. Yeah. In terms of fulfilling that connection piece, but also feeling that external piece of looking good. Yeah.
And it's true. There's two things there, because we'll talk about self-care shortly, because you take care of yourself really well, and I love that. But also knowing there's a human that's cutting your hair sometimes, because I'm the worst for it. I'll take my earphones, I take my laptop, and I go to the hairdresser to do work. But actually, Shawnee, shout out to Shawnee. Shawnee's been doing my hair for years and years and years, and I have followed her when she's moved hairdressing places, and she's just my person. I've got curly, frizzy ringlet hair.
Oh, wow.
Nobody knew that. But she just knows how to cut it. She just does the meanest job. But I know all about her family and her kids, but also sometimes if I've got heaps of work, she just totally understands that my headphones are in. But I think it's important to remember that, acknowledge them and ask questions and not just be like, that weather is great today.
There's a lot of lost, the art of connection.
Opportunity,
It's a lost art too,
Yeah.
of really seeing someone for who they are and what they do and what value they bring to you. So
Yeah.
I like to think I do that with most people. Like I do like the feeling of going into a cafe and the barista knows who you are and what your coffee order is, or you go into your favorite restaurant and you can order the same things. I like, especially in a place like Hamilton, I do like to support business of people that I know. Like I know that my contribution is going directly to help them and their family. Like I think there's a lot to be said for that too.
It sure is. And particularly in the climate that we're all in at the moment,
Yeah.
even more so if you can afford to, because unfortunately there is quite a price difference, whether it's clothing or service, or there's certainly different prices, but being aware of where you're putting that dollar, I think that's a really important thing in the next few years for all of us, just to be really mindful of who we're helping and where we doing the little things that we can do to support. Where do you buy your coffee? Coffee culture. Second time, Sasha. Now, another major piece of your identity and community and a big shift for you has been stopping drinking alcohol. So talk to us about the change that's happened, the courageous conversation that's happened, and sort of the impact that that's now had for you.
So I was a classic Kiwi binge drinker. I could put my piss away if I needed to. There's a badge of honor that goes with that. I was the guy that when we were out, if someone couldn't finish their drink and we were moving pubs, here, Shay, have this. Boof, down it, let's move on. As I got older, the hangovers, that's normal, right? The hangovers got worse and worse and worse. I think contributing to it was in that dark period of time post Papua New Guinea. They just seemed to hit way worse than before. And I would wake up and I'd piss the bed as a 40-year-old man, or I'd pissed in the cupboard. And there's nothing more like humbling, I think, than waking up, no recollection, you're like, fucking hell, I don't remember what happened. And your elderly mum has had to clean up after her adult son. And there's like she's asking, do you remember what happened last night? And I've got no recollection. And she sort of doesn't say anything. And slowly you kind of piece the story back together and you're like, oh, fucking hell, what am I doing? And that feeds the negative thoughts as well. And then, I haven't always been so forward in terms of how I'm feeling and what I'm feeling and communicating that. And I was a classic, I'll just go and drink it away and forget about it. And hopefully by the time I wake up, that would have sorted itself out, which very rarely happens.
We've escalated it somewhat.
So it was. I've had a number of kind of situations which, looking back on it, should have been signs of like, maybe you and alcohol have done your thing. Like alcohol wasn't part of the household growing up. My mum and dad don't drink, so it was almost like I had the mentality of like, when I get my hands on it, I've got to get as much of it as I can, because it's not normalized. And it got to a point where, like the hangovers were horrendous, but also the behaviors whilst drinking were probably they weren't a representation of who I wanted to be. And I spoke earlier about wanting to be a role model, and I was having situations where I was having these really deep conversations with young men, trying to give them advice or trying to kind of guide them and help them make sense of the world. Then on a Saturday night, I was getting blitzed, and they were like seeing me sloppy as all hell in Sal's Pizza at 3 a.m, burning my mouth on a pepperoni, or whatever it was, or I was hassling them to try and get disco treats to try and boost my night, and I'm kind of like also going, what am I doing? But it wasn't at a point where I was like, what am I doing? I've got to stop. It was like, just what am I doing? Do you want to come out? Yeah, okay. So exactly, like fits and starts. So we were doing it. At that stage, we were probably, Stephen and I were 2 years into the podcast, between two beers. So, even the name itself was like, the preface was, if you have a couple of drinks with someone, they're more likely to loosen up and to have a yarn. So, we'd started this pod and that was part of it. And, I was having these episodes, and we were driving home separate cars from Auckland one night, and we just recorded an episode with Rebecca Rolls, who's a dual international cricket and football, played for New Zealand. She's a commentator then with Spark Sport, now with TVNZ. She was a top cop as well, like really well respected, and it was a great episode. But at the start of the episode, I'd retold a story of being drunk at a friend's stag do, and she lived on the same. We'd gone into the house. We recorded in her house, and she lived on the same street that they did. And at the end of the stag do, I was coming home to come back to their place, and I went to the wrong house like 3 or 4 times, and I'm pretty confident hers was one of the wrong houses. There was 3 houses on the same street with a big white fence, and it was retold in a kind of a jovial way. But the real story of that night was, I went to one of these white fences. It wasn't theirs, and got to the front door, and a family had come out, and the husband was like, "What are you doing here?" And it was clearly obviously not the right house. So I apologized and went out. Must have fallen over outside a tree, lost my phone, eventually found the right house, fell asleep, pissed on the couch again in my sleep, went out the next day, for a night out with no phone. The family, the father or whoever, eventually got the phone to the right white fence house. And that was going, all those things are going through my head, and I was like, I'm starting to get a little bit of a profile here as well. Like this could all come crashing down with just one, bad big night out. And at that point, Stephen, we're talking on the phone, and Stephen said, "Look, man, like, I don't know what's going on in your own head or what you're thinking, but out of everybody that I know, you're the person who least needs alcohol to feel comfortable in a situation. You've got this amazing personality. You're charming, you're funny, you're engaging." And if you think putting 10 pints on top of that enhances what you've already got, it's the opposite. It makes you sloppy. I don't like being around that person. And I was like, "Yeah, you're right. He's like, "Look, maybe just drinking's not for you anymore." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right. I'm gonna stop." And he's like, "Okay, well, if you do make this decision and you do decide to stop, if you fall back on it and you go out and you have a night out and you turn into that person, I don't really want to hang around that guy anymore." And that was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's
like a foundation block being pulled out.
Yeah, exactly right. So I committed to it, and like I'm a classic. I'm a very flaky personality in terms of my commitment at the best of times. So, but there was just something about knowing, putting all of those stories together and getting to that point where I was like, this is the right thing to do. And I had a wedding that weekend to attend with one of my friends from university, and I thought, well, if I can get through the wedding in the first week, I should be okay. And I told my mates that I'm not drinking anymore in the lead up, and they're like, come on, you'll have one. I was like, nah, if I'm going to do this, I've got to do it. And fair play to them as well. They were this is a different group of friends, mind you. So that they were great. They were supportive. It was orange juices and lemonades through the night. Stephen, I think, checked in on me the next day, and I was like, yep. Didn't have any drinks. It was all good. And then I slowly got more confidence to kind of share that message. So the football group that you talk about as well, in the players, the first team the players chat, I said, look, guys, I've made this decision to not drink. I'd really like your support through it. I've been going through a tough time, and they were great. And it was I think the fact that there was no real blowback of like, like, what are you doing? Or, nah, come on, drink your pussy. Come on, get out. Come on, have it. Like, there was not a single person in my circle that were like not supportive of the decision, which one is a credit to the circle of people that I've got around me, but two also is maybe speaks to what I was really like. And I find now when I'm in those social situations, I still go out. I still, midnight's probably my kind of my limit. But when I see the decline of someone who's having a big night, and I just think, oh man, I was that times 10, and it's like, okay, like I don't want to kind of be in that. And the podcast itself has been great in terms of a platform to share that message and to receive. Again, I don't do it for validation, but when you hear other people who've been walked down the same path or are contemplating it, and it's really fulfilling. It's really cool. I haven't I've probably replaced some of the drinking with eating, but and people are like, oh, wait, how come you can't apply the same discipline to eating that you do to drinking? It's like, yeah, because food tastes yum.
One thing at a time.
Yeah, food tastes too yum to bomb that off.
Life's for living.
Yeah.
If I want the chocolate cake, it's coming. I work out with a group of friends, and the running joke is we do this so we can eat whatever we want.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
Exactly.
That's massive. That's
Yeah.
so massive, and it's the more males that we're talking to at the moment, the more and more we're hearing that they're either slowing it right down or stopping drinking alcohol as well. And I think it's not only brave, but it's going to start shifting the culture the more people talk about it, and the more brave conversations that Stephen had, and the friends that stop going, oh, come on, one beer won't hurt.
Yeah.
And just go, cool, that's your choice.
Yeah.
We're good. It's not like you'd be like, oh, I'm thinking about having a baby. Oh, bro, do you think that's a good idea?
Yeah.
It's the same. It's exactly the same. It's a decision you've made, and that's, yeah.
Yeah. One of the other parts that I haven't read, I don't really retell because it's blurred out, but one of the parts prior to that conversation with Stephen, I had another conversation with Stephen and another friend when I was in a really dark space, and that was are you okay conversation. At that point, I really wasn't okay, and that I think. The fact that he showed enough love and care for me to not only have that challenging conversation about, are you thinking about doing something stupid, having that sense, to then fast forwarding 18 months or whatever it was, to having that second conversation, knowing the struggles that had been there before, and thinking, well, that's not helping. There's a risk of you going back into that and maybe worse. So, I'm super lucky to have those kind of cool people around me, and that's another motivating factor for me to try and be a bit of that person for other people if they need it.
Yeah, role model for those young crew, eh?
Yeah.
Now, when we sat in the sun, we caught up about so much stuff, and I'm hoping that I can capture some of those stories today, because just like that one just then, there's so much to be learnt from you, and so many lessons to take, but so much curiosity to start getting built around what can I do that's actually going to serve me better. Alcohol wasn't serving you. Here's what I can do. It wasn't serving my friends. It wasn't, long term, this wasn't going to go well. So one thing I was really intrigued with was that you're really self-conscious about your body. And women say that all the time.
Yeah.
I'd say, our negative self-talk to ourselves is horrible. But from a male to say that again, it was incredibly brave just to say that. So talk to us about that, and talk to us about the learnings that you've had as well around mindset for your body.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I've kind of unpacking it as I go as well. But I that 2 years in PNG again, if I think back to it, if anyone's been to Papua New Guinea, it's a challenging country to be in terms of just moving around. So I had 2 years up there of earning good money, but not having much to do and to spend it on. But what I could do and spend it on was food and booze. There wasn't a gym that I could go to comfortably while I was up there. Like, there's hotel gyms, but access, etc., etc. So I had 2 years of really enjoying myself. And I'm always been a big person, but I piled weight on there, and I haven't really shifted it. So there was the shame of feeling like I'd failed professionally. And then I come back to New Zealand, and I'm like, shortly after I got back, I went and watched a football game in Auckland, and I'd parked the car up not even a steep street in Auckland. And I was like puffed walking from the game to the car, and I thought, shit, this isn't good.
Yeah.
I wore jandals for the first 6 months that I came back, because it was a challenge for me to tie shoelaces up. It was terrible. And I still now, I know that I'm not in a great physical space. Like, my partner's really concerned about my health. I'm equally concerned about my health. Like, I make a conscious decision. You'll see I'm wearing a black t-shirt today. I wear a black t-shirt pretty much every day because it's slimming. I can blend into the background. It's a very, very conscious fashion choice, because I don't want to be noticed. And as I've got older, I'm like, I'm never a super athlete, but like aches and pains and creaks and stuff are just that much more magnified.
Yeah.
I complain about my Achilles every day. It's like, I don't even do anything to have a sore Achilles. Like, why is my Achilles sore? So yeah, like the grooming stuff, like I always try and make sure I smell good, because those little things for myself mask the insecurities that I have about my physical appearance. Like I wasn't in a relationship for 7-8 years. Like I wasn't willing to put myself out there, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like you don't feel good about yourself, so you hide yourself away.
Yep.
But when you're hiding yourself away, like I'm eating or I'm doing things, like I still do. I'll do a sneaky McDonald's run. So, but eat in my car, so nobody's aware that I'm eating it. And I'll come home and then eat a second dinner, and I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So it's again, consciously I can recognize these things, but trying to pull the brakes on some of them, they're really hard behaviors to kind of unlearn.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of there's a lot of shame attached to it. And again, culturally, like funny. Just recently, like when you go back to the village, the first thing anybody says to you when you walk back in is, "Geez, you need to cut down."
Oh, really?
Or, "Man, you're so skinny. You need to eat." Like
that's what I thought.
It's those two two paradigms. So food and food choices for some reason are really scrutinized. Yep. They've always been really scrutinized for me growing up. So I eat away from people, so people don't see what I'm eating, or I'll buy the chocolate bar on the way home, or I'll go to the it's a again, logically I can make sense of it, but putting the brakes on it is a hard thing to do. So I grapple with that. I grapple with that still. Like I wish I was 19 again. So peak Mus was 18 years old, just at a boys' high, was phenomenal. And I look back at some of those photos and I'm like, man, I don't even recognize that person to who they are now. So it's that's definitely a work on. But also, like as you get older, you get more acutely aware of the amount of time that you've got left on Earth. So if you don't make some changes and move some stuff, or keep moving some stuff, or make small changes, you're in for a world of hurt.
There's a book called 4,000 Weeks, and once I heard that you roughly get 4,000 weeks, and then you start thinking, well, I just wasted 52 this year and I don't know where they went. And you start to really pay attention. But we were driving in the car the other day with my kids, and the song the artist has just gone out of my head, but you don't know what you've got till it's gone. That lyric, don't know what it's Fugees?
Yeah, I think it's Erykah Badu.
I'm going to go with you.
Yeah.
And my son goes, what does that mean? Because I go, oh, so true.
Yeah.
And it's from little Darren at 17, who I thought was so fat. She was so skinny and she was gorgeous.
Yeah.
But all I could see was imperfections.
Yeah.
To then 20, she's still great. She's changed, but now, God, I wish I was 17, because I had, but you don't know what you've got till it's gone. Whether it's people that you love in your life, and it's the same as wishing that you were 19 again. But we'd still have made all the same choices.
Totally.
We wouldn't have learned anything.
And it's catch-22 as well, because like we interviewed Brad Smaler, who was top wakeboarder, who had an accident and is now a paraplegic.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's real stuff to to complain about. And then you're also like, oh God, what excuse do I have to not exercise? And I think we're our own harshest critic. Like no one will ever be harsher on you than the voice that's up in here.
That's true.
And it's I'd never speak to anyone the way I speak to myself. But then it's halting it, I guess. And like even just this, just articulating it. I don't know if I've ever spoken about any of these kind of body things really openly before. But they're real. They're real, and they're real triggers to your mindset as well around negative thought, and that fuels all sorts of stuff that goes on in your own head.
It's literally, I reckon, a daily process. Like I often hear about addicts, and I think, oh, you know, like how have they gotten to that path, and you know they need to make that decision to stop. But then I can't stop eating chocolate.
Yeah.
And sweets.
Yeah.
And so when I find myself, I've started to really pay attention to myself. I'm like, well, if that's that easy for me to do, when I keep saying to myself, stop it, then who am I to ever have a comment on anybody doing anything kind of thing? Because I cannot control that. I can, but I have every excuse not to. You know what I mean? And the same thing. Like, I've had a tough day, so I'll have this because this is what's going to make that go away, or I'll start tomorrow, or whatever. But it's owning that. And there's a guy called Robin Sharma. He wrote the Everyday Hero Manifesto, and there's the line, "You'd never break a promise to someone else, so why do you do it to yourself?"
100%.
That like smacked me in the face. But then I still don't live it every day. But
you know, I'm exactly the same. It's only when you get put on the spot like this, you kind of go, oh, okay, I've put it out there now.
Yeah,
and maybe that is, maybe it's more of those conversations amongst your friends about like, shit, I'm not feeling great about the way I look, or the way you know, the way my eating, or you know, whatever it is. A friend of mine messaged saying he wanted to catch up, and instead of a coffee catch up like we normally would, it's like, let's go for a walk around the lake. It's like I think those little changes are probably a good way of building good habits.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
one step, one day at a time.
Yeah, but it's, you know, it's interesting so like the haircut thing and the, you know, looking after yourself, the beard, but like all of that shit, it's to cover up or make you feel better about all the other kind of insecurities that you've got.
Oh, well, we'll go walking anytime, Seamus.
I'd love to.
We're in. Now, you love a good cold immersion in Taupo, and I personally couldn't think of anything more horrible because it's so cold. So I've got a two-part question here. So what does it do for you? But if you were a salesman trying to pitch cold immersion to someone else, how would you sell it to me that it is amazing?
I'll sell it to you first, and then I'll tell you why I like it.
Cool.
So the cold immersion thing was introduced to me by Stephen.
Yeah.
So Stephen jumped on the Wim Hof bandwagon, and it was in that time, kind of around that time period of being in not a great space. And his sell to me was, if you get up in the morning, you can consciously look at the shower. So we were talking about cold showers, and make a conscious decision to turn that shower to cold. You've started the day doing something that you don't want to do, and if you overcome something that you don't want to do so early, that will gradually kind of build into it. So I guess, and Goggins, you know, subscribes to that, do something that sucks every day. So it's kind of a little bit of that. More so for me, I just like the grounding feeling of being somewhere that I love. I got in this year, Matariki was in July, right?
Yep.
So we got in every morning. We stayed in Kinloch. So we got into the lake every morning in July, which was Baltic.
Freezing.
It was, but we did it. Nothing bad happened. We didn't die.
Didn't get super sick.
Didn't get super sick. You don't get sick from being cold.
Lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. You don't get a cold from being cold. You get a cold from the virus. For me, it's a bit of a spiritual kind of woo-woo thing about. Being that's like the physical. For me, the lake is the physical embodiment of what Taupo is to me. So by being in it, I feel more connected to that place and all of the wonderful memories that it has, while your testicles shrink up into your stomach,
come up to your throat,
and you get pins and needles in your skin. But there is something to be said, I think, for overcoming that challenge. That challenge of being freezing and knowing that this is going to suck. Like, standing on the shore, and we did it first thing in the morning as well. So standing on the shore, waiting for the sun to peek through the clouds, which when you're doing it in the Western Bay is the dumbest idea because it takes forever for that sun to pop up. But like, being on the beach, being like, this is going to suck more than it sucked yesterday, and then just doing it anyway is cool.
Good on you.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm sold.
The sale is if you can do something that sucks first thing in the morning, you've done your one thing that sucks for the day, and everything else is going to be better than what that was.
Do that uncomfortable, whatever it is that you choose is uncomfortable. I like that. Now, you've had a lads chat running since 2014?
Yes.
2015, 2014. What impact does it have having that kind of group of friends in your life?
Oh man, that's That's one of the best things. The friendship of that group of people is one of the best things in my life. They were there through that difficult time when I was in Papua New Guinea. They were my connection back here to New Zealand. We've got friends now that are overseas that's their connection back. Yep. We've got, and it's I don't know, I've just been blessed with a special group of friends, but it's also an environment where sometimes under the veil of humour, sometimes not, you can throw something out to them to get that shared wisdom, that shared experience. And then it provides an opportunity for like sidebar conversations or breakout conversations about like, Seamus was a bit snappy on those comments before. Is everything okay with him? And individuals will check in to see how you are, or if you haven't been active for a while. So through the course of that group being established, I think when it was established, there were 2 dads, and now there's 5 dads.
Wow.
So you get
evolution.
Yeah, but you also get the ability to ask like, okay, for the dads in the group.
Yep.
How do I navigate this, or when is our relationship going to go back to where it was, or whatever it is, or so it's a really that virtual chat space opens the door for face-to-face conversations as well, and for us to each check in on one another. So we're a very tight group of friends.
That's so cool.
That love each other unconditionally. So like when I was in those dark moments, and Stephen and Gavin Douglas, another friend that was at that conversation, was like, okay, well the rest of the group outside of that group rallied around to make sure that I was okay. So you'd be getting phone calls from people saying, how's it going?
Yeah.
And unbeknownst to me, that was designed for support. So it's super, super uplifting, and it's just continued, and the laughs.
Yeah.
Like the gags.
The laughs.
Because as you get older, you don't see each other as often as you would do. So the chance to retell old stories, or to bring up the gag from 20 years ago of whatever, or you see something on the news and it reminds you of something, you can
check it on the chat.
Yeah, you can screenshot it and go from there. And I wish everyone had a chat group like ours, or a group of friends like ours that are supportive to that degree.
Yeah. I've got one with my Hey Mama training ladies, and God, it's funny. There's a funny one going through at the moment. One put up a meme of someone getting jelly legs at the end of a marathon, and it's like Christmas, decorations, presents, like, and the wheels are falling off. And so there's this big, I think there's about 30 comments before. I haven't read it all because I've been with you, but it's just that kind of banter.
Totally.
Going, oh my God, I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Someone's got a birthday as well for one of their kids, and just, it's just so
if we
good.
could transcribe, like if someone could go through and transcribe some of the stuff from 2015, like with the illustrations that accompany them. Just
there
so
you go.
good.
That's a book idea, mate.
Yeah.
Go for it.
No, I don't know if it'll be. That's probably not safe for publication. Maybe a few reputations that would be severely damaged for some pretty upstanding members of society.
Loosely based on true stories.
Yeah.
Now, to any parent who's listening, how can they support their sons or their children to build those kind of foundational relationships and those long-lasting relationships?
Ooh. Yeah, it's that's a good question. I think we just gravitated by default. But I think friendship's a funny thing. Like I remember growing up at high school or earlier with friends, you thought you'd be friends for life, and you just gradually drift apart. We had Dwayne Dalton on our podcast recently, and he talked about, your reflection of your 6 closest kind of people around you. So I guess, parents that are keeping tabs on their children's friends is maybe, I think it's a little bit back to that kind of Murray and the Barber thing, right? It's like how those kids treat other people around them, and keeping an eye on those kind of cues. Like there's a lot to be said for please and thank yous in this day and age, and the kids that are really respectful, I think, are the ones that you want to kind of push your kids towards, which aren't always the kind of super successful kids sometimes growing up as well. I definitely think kids that are polite to adults are one to kind of look out for.
Agree.
For sure. Without forcing your kids to be friends with them, but just kind of corralling, like, maybe you could why don't you spend more time with
Yeah.
with so and so? I don't know whether that, I can't speak from parental experience, but like attracts like. So I think if you can, old school manners, no school like the old school, right?
Old school manners, honestly, there's a lot to be said. That's our like primary goal with our kids, and so many people go, oh my goodness, they'll get shocked that they've said thank you or please. I'm like, that's sad, that's shocking,
Right.
breaks my heart a little bit. We talk to our kids about how does that make you feel? So they'll tell us about a story of the day, and you can imagine blood boils sometimes with parents when you hear like, they did what to you? Or someone said what? And so instead of going, oh, I don't like that kid, it's going, how did that make you feel?
Yeah.
And does that feel like what a good friend would do? And we're trying to like question so that they have to come up with the answer rather than the lecture of the mother going, I don't want you to spend time.
Yeah, well, that's a trend in coaching as well. Like player-centered coaching is around like the players. They got to problem solve on the field, right?
Yeah.
Like the coach can only do so much. But as soon as the whistle goes, they're in it themselves. So if they spot a problem, it's not turn to the coach and go, hey, can we do this? It's like, well, you see the problem, you go and fix it.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit, probably equipping your kids to know right from wrong and to have those kind of filters up in place to hang out with the kids that are making good decisions.
Yeah. And also knowing yourself, right? Like that identity journey as you go through, like if something matters to you, you want to find friends who, if you're going to share about your football, we're not going, yawn. We're here to talk about something else, like finding the people that you click with, but knowing who you are in that group and realizing if you're having to change a lot to be in that group, maybe it's not but it's a maturity thing and it's a hard thing to learn.
Yeah.
We try and fit into all kinds of places. So.
Yeah.
Now, you practice habit stacking, good old James Clear. So talk to us about what you do with your habit stacking.
So I play PlayStation to relax. I don't know whether that's active relaxing or not, but I had guilt around like feeling like I was wasting time, 3-4 hours playing PlayStation. So then I read James Clear, and I started then listening to podcasts at the same time, so that I guess I felt like I was equipping myself with some knowledge while I was brainlessly trying to beat the computer at football. So I'm not a super expert on habit stacking. I feel like there's some room to be there, and it's actually a book I do need to revisit.
Yeah.
But I do like it's the same with driving.
Yeah.
So I drive to Auckland a lot for podcast or for work or for whatever, and it's the same thing. I'll try and cram in a podcast or something to use during that dead time, or ring friends, using that time to kind of catch up and reconnect with people when you can, while you can. Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be said when your mate calls you out of the blue.
Oh, man.
Not going, hey, have you got time to do it? It's just like, hey, bro.
Yeah.
Like, oh, hi.
Yeah.
Do you need something? No, just...
Yeah, but I'm really bad sometimes at ignoring those calls. Not taking those calls, thinking that I'm busy for something else versus actually making time to connect with that person. So apologies, Byron Harris. Yours is often the one that that goes through to.
Not next time though.
No, well actually I've made a point.
Now he said this.
Yeah, well that same lads group, we have an annual pub crawl every December, and I missed it this year. And Baz flew over from Sydney to be part of it. So I think that's testament to our friends, our friendship, right? So that to jump back, it's just come to we had like an annual event every year that you would be obliged to attend.
Yeah.
So you could miss everything else, but that's the one thing. So the chat's kind of often just related directly to like the year's planning for that one event. So those foundation anchor events are kind of they're central to keeping everybody kind of connected.
Yeah. That's so cool.
I've said connected about 50,000 times on this.
I reckon good questions and connected are like our two themes today, but we'll see. Now, music and gratitude are something that is really important for your mind. So talk to us about how those two things help you transport yourself into those previous states of mind or things that have happened.
Yeah, I attach memories to songs.
Yeah,
I think probably a lot of people do that as well. But for sure, if I'm feeling a certain way, I'll more often than not lean into it. It used to be the hungover Sundays. I would put Scorpions' "Dust in the Wind." Is that them? I don't know. No, that's Winds of Change.
Yeah.
I would like Winds of Change, like proper miserable songs because I was like, I feel so shit.
This is where I'm at.
Yeah, I just want to cry. So I pop those on to feel a certain feeling, and it's the same in the opposite. It's like I want to go back to a place where I was, super happy, or a song that played in a changing room after a win, after something that we did. So yeah, I'm huge on music. When I drove out here, I was listening to Limp Bizkit, My Generation, which is it's a super happy time, right? Late 90s, early 2000s, like a lot of fond memories of that, just to get me into a kind of a positive, happy mindset. So music is huge. I spend a lot of time curating playlists for myself more than anything else, and they're themed around different things. But one of the best things you can get is someone being like, not wanting you to if you're in control of the aux cable or the Bluetooth speaker, is that if your playlist is playing uninterrupted without skip this shit, or can you put this on?
It's like a badge of honor, eh?
You've done a good job.
Oh yeah,
I think I've done a good job. They're all public as well, my Spotify playlists, if you want to get on.
I'm going to hunt this out. I've just gone onto Spotify, so I'm going to find
welcome to the club.
Yeah. I've been Apple hard for a long time, but they're doing some things I don't like, so I'm finally transferring my cool playlists slowly.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, like I spent ages, the golden age. It's like all these hip hop tunes from late 80s, kind of 90s. Man, they're just a vibe. It's so cool. Like that takes me back, as a concrete example. That takes me back to listening to my brother's cassette tapes in his room and being like, man, I want to be like him one day. Like they're just real nice memories.
Yeah. My Generation takes me back to sitting at St. Andrews at my friend Renee's house and her revving that on full. And pool table in their house, and just like the relaxed, but also just vibing fun with 17-year-old girls. It was so much fun. Yeah. That song straight away goes there. Now, you love a good audiobook. So tell us about some of your favourite audiobooks and why they might be good for us to take a listen to.
Resilience Project.
Yeah.
Hugh van Cuylenburg.
Yeah.
That was a game changer for me. That was recommended to me by Andrew Miller. And I don't know whether it was because I related to the storytelling element of the way that he gets his message across, but also just the gem, the gratitude, empathy, and mindfulness for me was, I don't practice it as much, but if I catch myself consciously thinking about it, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a real good kind of point to take away. I'm a nightmare for, I've got so many audiobooks downloaded that I've not completed. Like a lot of classics on there, but for sure, like the Resilience Project, I've gone back 2 or 3 times. I've completely forgotten James Clear's book.
Atomic Habits.
Oh my God. So Atomic Habits, Atomic Habits is, I forgot that before as well, and I tried to cover it up. So I just said James Clear. Atomic Habits is one that I've listened to a couple of times. I tried Goggins, just not for me. No. Just too hardcore. Untethered Soul is one that I've recently downloaded but not listened to. Yeah. Man's Search for Meaning. I
have that on my bookshelf for some of.
Yeah. My brother recommended me to read it when I was 14, and then recently Russell Packer and Josh Coleman both recommended it on our podcast as 2 to listen to. But yeah, I've got so many, but I keep going back to the Resilience Project, and that's one that I recommend to other people. Yeah. I think I've bought a physical copy of Atomic Habits for someone else and gifted that to them because I thought that would help them. But yeah, I keep coming back to Resilience Project. Yeah. There's just something about that.
I've shared his story about this many times.
Yeah.
You know, what do you mean?
Yeah.
This.
Yeah.
In those moments where there's something to be grateful for, like, this
totally.
is it. But his sister's story also just threw me for 6. It was
for me, it's the NRL player that came up to him and said he was going to take his own life that day. But hearing him speak changed his mind on that. And I've taken that away and as well as being like, fuck, you just never know where someone's head is at in that moment. And it's one thing I heard someone else say it, Mike Minogue, that if you can leave a room in a better place than when you found it, you're doing a good thing. And I really consciously try and do that now. Not in a fake way. No. But just in a try and uplift people when you leave, so that you just don't know. You just don't know what people are thinking at that time. And if you can make someone feel a little bit better just by acknowledging them, seeing them, asking them a question, giving them a genuine compliment, then I think it's a good thing to do.
And I think the most important thing is, even if they don't engage with you in that moment, and that's what happened in that story, is, he's talking about amazing things and this guy's just not looking at him the whole time.
Yeah.
Don't think you didn't make a difference by noticing and just commenting, because that might just stop whatever the next step was going to be. Even though they don't necessarily engage, I think that's a really important part as well, is don't think you failed it because they didn't open up when you asked.
Yeah,
you
that's
know
right.
something's going on, they don't tell you, but for just the fact that someone noticed might, for them to be like, wow, I didn't realise anyone would notice that I was so low.
Yeah.
You know, I need to talk to someone or do something. Or that's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing, Seamus. This has been amazing. We've got one more question for you today.
Okay.
So this is from one of our previous interviewees.
Okay.
They've written you a question. So you're going to read it, answer it for us, and then you can write your own one for the next person. So that's your one there.
Oh, that is a great question. What's one thing you'd like others to remember about you at the end of your life? Shit. Just that I was a good person. And that I made people smile. Yeah. I don't know why that got me so teary. That was a wicked...
Because it's a massive question.
That's a wicked question.
Yeah.
That's a hard question to follow up trying to write another question when you get something as good as that. That is an epic question. I'm gonna ask that of a few people.
Yeah.
In the future. Wow. Yeah. That I was a good person and that I made people smile. That would be enough for me.
Massive.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for today.
No, thank you.
And thank you so much for listening and being here with us. And we can't wait to hear the feedback. So thank you so much, Seamus. And we will see you again soon. Ka kite.